All right, so right now we are going to break down some of, I would say, pop culture's best moments in the way of reality TV. In 1992, The Real World made such a big splash. Coming off of also all the buzz that was like a Melrose Place, and when MTV itself came to create something like The Real World. Originally, the idea was to have a version of the Melrose Place, a very much a scripted show, etc. And saving money, I suppose, or just trying a new genre, the docu style, gave way to The Real World. So let's go back and reminisce of what it was like, of how we as viewers were enjoying this TV show called The Real World all those years ago. And let's talk about some of the highlights. So first, let's start with I don't want to call anything the best, but The Real World New York, the original season and why it was so wonderful.
The 1992 docuseries premiered in May with a 13-series run co-created by Jonathan Murray and the late Mary Ellis Boonham. The iconic cast included Norman the artist, musicians Becky and Andre, Kevin the writer, Heather the rapper, Eric the model, and Julie, who was the fish out of water from Alabama, who just moved to New York City to pursue a career in dance. The Real World New York's initial season covered a variety of topics, including career aspiration, the state of politics for the MTV generation, New York City poverty, drug abuse, nightlife, liberation, education, activism, and more. The series was greeted with a variety of cameos, including Isaiah Thomas, Dennis Rodman, and Bill Laimbeer, radio host Matt Pinfield, politician Jerry Brown, nightlife artists Michael Alig and Amanda Lepore, TV host Charles Perez, and most notably, Heather B's ultimate crush, basketball player Larry Johnson.
Okay, so moving on to the Venice season. The Venice season, a couple different elements. They had the Winnebago kind of basically come from where they met with John, which was Tami, Dominic, and John coming across to Venice Beach. Sort of like an entry-level idea of like a Winnebago, which later turned into the Road Rules. The Road Rules really was that. You were in a Winnebago, you were going across the country, you were doing challenges. But what makes Venice Beach interesting is, I don't know that it's the best season, but you can actually say there are some wonderful cast members on the show. Tami Roman has had a huge amount of success and currently still doing a ton of stuff with a bunch of other networks, the Miss Pat Show, VH1 Network, etc., etc. She was a staple on a TV show called Basketball Wives for years and years and years. And you think about it too, because one thing that I loved, again, Venice didn't all completely feel cohesive. They did have the big moment with David getting kicked out. That was the first time we kind of seen that on TV as a real world cast member getting kicked out. But what I think is interesting, just going back to Tami for a second, is that you have this moment of like, if you really look back at her season, both the work she was doing, both some of the issues she was bringing to the table, how difficult those things were to talk about, and really getting a reaction, not just from her cast members, her housemates, but from what that's going to look like when the show airs all these years later. And I say that to say, there's a reason why Tami Roman has continued to be so successful after The Real World, because a lot of people do the show and they have a little bit of a run, a little bit of success, but it doesn't go anywhere. And Tami has done a really wonderful job. I've seen her in a lot of other of her programs that she's worked on, and she's just equally as funny. She's just, different, and she's aged up to who she is of today. But going back, when you really go back, it still is a pretty great season. There are some wonderful cast members. Irene is on the show. Beth, say what you say about Beth. Beth was authentically always Beth. She always kind of got on your nerves in a way. She did have a nice, delightfully bright light about her. I remember the season, and I think they should have done this more, where I think they were like all trying to go to some type of party in Beverly Hills, and it was something that would like potentially like better their careers or whatever. Like Beth was like trying to work in production or something like that. Her being left out and embarrassed, like, although that's nothing you want to watch, you don't want to like laugh at her about it. It just felt very like, you're seeing these cast members come to this wonderful Venice Beach house and they're aspiring for their dreams and they're having these bumps and bruises along the way. You know, much that anyone would do who, you know, comes to chase their dreams. You know, David, say what you say about David, and he had the biggest moment on the show being kicked out. You know, David already, you know, had got casted in the TV show House Party. House Party. Yep, with Kid and Play. He was already having a little bit of a run with his success in comedy. And so I think those early stages in terms of the LA season where they got it right was they had Dominic was a music writer or executive. I think he was a music writer. So you had a lot of really fun, creative people doing really creative things, trying to take on Los Angeles. And I thought that was cool. They definitely got that right with season 1 too, as I mentioned. The New York season, you know, the Heather, the Kevin, the Julie, the Eric Nice who went on to the grind, Above the Rim and other things, and has certainly evolved in so many ways, as I was, you know, mentioning that season 2. All right, so going on to a couple other seasons, honorable mentions.
Hey, Ronnie Jr.